Welcome to grade 11 Life Science. Today we're looking at diseases that are caused by protists. There are several diseases that are caused by protists, but our chosen one is malaria. It is caused by a plasmodium, a protozoa, which is the Anopheles mosquito. It causes the red blood cells to rupture. The Anopheles mosquito is a vector. In other words, it carries the disease, but it is not affected by it. Malaria is fatal, and it kills a lot of people, around 2 million in a year. Let us look at the life cycle of a plasmodium. So when a mosquito pierces the skin through biting, an anticoagulant together with saliva is secreted by the mosquito to prevent the blood from clotting. That is why when you have been bitten by a mosquito, you don't see any blood flowing from that particular place where you've been bitten. The blood can then be sucked freely by the mosquito. The plasmodium parasite is injected with the anticoagulant into the human. The parasite makes its way to the liver of the human and starts to reproduce asexually. It takes about 30 minutes for the parasite to be entered in the human body. The parasite then re-enters the blood and infects the red blood cells. The red blood cells continue to multiply. Now, 10 days later, the red blood cells, they burst, releasing many of the parasites into the blood. Remember, the red blood cells are continuously produced in the body. So those red blood cells that are not infected, that would have been produced, will now be infected by those red blood cells that would have ruptured. So each time a red blood cell bursts, it is destroyed and the body temperature of the host rises. In this case, remember, the human body is the one that is the worst. It results in fever-associated symptoms. That's why you find somebody with malaria having fever. Now, when an Anopheles mosquito bites an infected human, some of the parasites, they are sucked into the mosquito's body. Then through sexual reproduction between the plasmodium species, it occurs through that, right? Then the plasmodium parasites move to the salivary glands of the mosquito and are ready to infect another human being. Now, what are the symptoms of malaria? It is fever, headache, sweating, flu-like symptoms, and nausea. If you check out some of these symptoms, they're also related to the COVID virus that we are facing these days. But how can we treat malaria? If a person is displaying any of the symptoms that we have just discussed, after they visited a malaria-stricken place, they need to consult a doctor immediately. There are many drugs on the market that can cure a person infected with malaria. We need to know that treatment for malaria has to be started immediately, because the symptoms of the disease may occur between 10 to 14 days after the infection. We call this the incubation period. But by this time, the plasmodium would have multiplied in the body. Then prevention and control of malaria. You need to get rid of the malaria, of the mosquitoes, and prevent them from breeding. You need to drain the stagnant water from swamps, and then you empty containers of the rain. Your ponds have to be sprayed with a chemical or oil that destroys mosquito larvae. Then the houses must be sprayed with an insecticide. It must be done at sunset after all windows are closed. You need to sleep under a mosquito net. Or you apply a mosquito repellent to the skin. You wear long-sleeved clothing, trousers, and socks. You can also install insect screens on windows and doors. This will prevent mosquitoes from entering the house. When you're entering a high-risk mosquito area, you should get anti-malaria medication from a doctor or pharmacist. With the anti-malaria medication, you need to take it some days before you get into the malaria-stricken place. Again, we need to know that there is no single way to prevent malaria. It is a collective of ways that we can do to prevent the spread.